Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today we are live with a very special guest, author Maria Vale. Maria is a logophile and bibliovore and a worrier about the world. Me too. Trained as a medievalist, she tries to shoehorn dead languages into things that don't really need them. She lives in New York with her husband, 2 kids, and a long line of dead plants. No one will let her have a pet.
There's a long line of dead husbands.
Her first book, The Last Wolf, was chosen by Library Journal and Amazon as a best book of 2018 and was a Rita finalist in the paranormal romance and best debut categories. A Wolf Apart was chosen by Publishers Weekly as a best book of 2018. Forever Wolf was chosen by Booklist and Kirkus as a best book of 2019. And Season of the Wolf was named a best book of 2020 by Bookpage and Kirkus. Welcome to the podcast, Maria.
Thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to be here.
I know.
Those are awesome
accolades. I'm in the
accolades.
presence of greatness here.
Yeah.
No, I do. I feel so fortunate.
That's because you're sitting next to me.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is. We really do this podcast so we can sit close to Whitney. That's all it really boils down to. So I'm glad it wasn't a long string of dead husbands, because I really thought that's what she was going to say for a second. But I don't have plants either. I kill everything.
I do too.
It's awful.
I do too.
I've managed to kill everything, including those, those special things where you set them up and the lights turn on and the water is already in the.
It's supposed to do the work for you. Yeah.
And it's supposed to do the work for you. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, the thing is dead. So
Maybe it's because we're all too busy to talk to them. You think?
Maybe
that's what it is.
maybe.
I'm going to say that's what it is, because I've never been able to keep a plant alive.
I just feel like I'm evil somehow. Like really good people.
Well,
Really good people
aren't
can
most
keep
women
plants going.
nowadays, according to some people? So it
Yeah.
works out for us.
I just say I have a brown thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I say I have a black thumb because it's just it's so incredibly bad luck. Such bad luck.
So can I ask, this might be a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When your bio says you live in New York, is that New York City or New York State, somewhere else away from
New
the
York
city?
City. New York City.
Okay.
I spent some time in Syracuse when I was really little, and my dad lived on the sort of southwest corner of the Adirondack Park, which is why the Adirondacks is my setting for my series. But I live in New York City, even though I love to write about wild things.
You're a city girl at heart.
There's some wild stuff in New York City.
It's true. Do you follow What is New York on Instagram?
No, I don't. Should
Yeah,
I?
you should, because every day they post just insane things that they've taken video of like things happening in New York, like a semi that's like rolling and just continues to roll and take out like 10 cars at a time.
Gosh.
Or, like the jalopy rolling down the road, or, it's always like something destructive, but it's also just hilarious because people are just standing there like watching.
Right.
it.
Like it's just
They're
another
like, "Oh,
day.
there's New York City. No problem."
Well, I'm always really impressed with people who live in New York City, because I've been just a couple of times. My aunt lives in New Rochelle, and it stresses me out so much
Oh, I love New York.
to be in New York. Like, it's just, I guess I just have too much anxiety. I don't know what my deal is.
I was
but
raised in Las Vegas, though. Once you've lived
Wow.
there, you
Well,
can
that's
you can
true.
survive anything.
Live anywhere, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
All I can say is New York is really incredibly generous. The people are so generous. There've been a couple of times when I've seen somebody fall down or, some minor accident. I've lived here for a long time, 35 years. And I have never managed to get there first. I'm always running to try to be the first one, the first Good Samaritan. There are just too many Good Samaritans.
To
That's
hear that.
awesome.
Yeah,
that's
you
great.
see all the time. I don't count Louisville, Kentucky, where we live as the South, because we're like a mile from Indiana. But I lived in Arkansas, and people always talk about Southern charm and how nice people are in the South. It's all fake. Like, they're not really nice. It's like if someone says "bless your heart," like they're really being like,
Oh, that is
Good insult.
"Oh, it's a,
Bless your little.
Yeah, they're
heart.
like, pardon my French, but they're like, "You bitch." Like, that's, you know what I mean? And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I love the North because if you're being nice, it's really genuine.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I appreciate that.
Well, tell us a little bit, or a lot, I guess, about your Legend of All Wolves series.
okay, first of all, I'm going to say that I started this when I was 56. So I'm saying this so that anybody out there who's sort of like, okay, that ship has sailed, that ship has definitely not sailed.
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
And I at first was not telling anybody my age because everybody seemed to be so much younger than I was. Which is why if you make a pop culture reference and my face goes blank, you'll know why. But I now tell everybody because I think there are a lot of people who are my age or older and who are saying, I can't, I've got a great story idea, but I can't do it.
Right.
I'm just there to say, yes, you can. And actually, the Legend of All Wolves, can I add this in? There was another question we were going to ask about what
please.
inspired me
We're
to.
flexible.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
So I'm just going to say that it was actually a book that I was reading. I've never been a writer, but I've always been a inhaler of books.
Mhm.
So, and I never thought, oh, I'm never going to have a story. It's not me. And then I read a book that was a romance, a paranormal romance. And it was a sort of, wolf shifters as SWAT team trying to keep their inner beast under control.
You're going to send us the title. To this,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
I don't remember the title anymore. And I wouldn't say it because the point is I'm saying I love those kinds of books, but they're not actually true to wolves. It's like wolves were suddenly being portrayed as just this absolutely ravening beast that could not be controlled. And I thought, that's not really fair. And so I did a lot of research on wolves and I created The Legend of All Wolves, which the idea is really simple. It's that they're vulnerable, they're isolated, and that their first and foremost form is their wild form. They don't preference the human form. That's being in skin. They don't even particularly like it because they feel like they're muffled, like they're cut off from the world around them. So that was just the premise of it. And then once I did that, once I said, okay, here we've got this thing, I thought they have to be kind of conservative and kind of careful. And so I developed a whole bunch of laws and their own language and everything else. So it's got this sort of intricate world, which is based largely on medieval literature and culture. And since I was a medievalist, which was an absolutely useless.
Yes. Can I ask what that means?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a medievalist? Because I just picture you like running out with a sword into the living room.
Right.
You have like a cup of coffee and you're picking up the coffee mug.
The
with your
LARPing.
No, I was gonna say that's
Right,
LARPing.
no, because medieval studies, what I love is there were a couple of sort of cross-disciplinary majors. One was antiquities and one was medieval studies. And what's great about that with medieval studies is that you're studying music, art, religion, history, literature. You're studying this whole range in this one narrow band of time. So it's not like you're taking a vertical narrow band, only math or only science through the ages. You're doing this horizontal band. And it's great. I later figured out that it was great for world building because you really are sort of seeing how things interact.
You're seeing it as like the whole big picture and not
Yeah.
just
Right, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Maria, do you mind me asking what your career was before you were a writer?
I was a journalist,
Okay.
worked in women's magazines primarily. And then had kids kind of later in life. And we moved to Germany for a while. I did freelance work
Yeah.
while I was raising kids. We moved, and then when we moved to Germany, I kind of gave that up. It was just too
Having
overwhelming.
kids is a lot of work. All three of us have
Yes.
kids. There's no bonus pay ever.
and you think when they're 18, 20, 21 that it's over, but it's not.
No, I have a 25-year-old who's living here now, who just moved back in because his lease went up. So
I'm feeling that with my 21-year-old right now.
And we talked about this a million times, but whenever I graduated high school, no one went home. You would eat like water sandwiches instead of going home because you only
Exactly.
did that. But now
That's-
everybody goes home.
I know. That's how we were.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah,
so.
you would live in a hovel and before you would crawl back to mom and
Right,
dad.
rice and bouillon. I would get a 10-pound bag of rice and
Oh my gosh, Maria, I was so
bouillon.
skinny. I was so skinny, but I felt horrible, right? I was malnourished, but I was
Your
not
hair's all lank, your eyes are sort of
Yeah,
weird.
I was dead inside, but I looked great.
Yeah, so that was that's what I did before I started writing.
That's wonderful.
That's really cool. Do you find that this kind of fantasy is like your favorite that kind of thing to write, or would you ever like consider going in a different genre, or have you written anything in a different genre?
Well, so the first thing I've written is paranormal, and I really love paranormal because paranormal means beside normal,
Right.
and I always think of it as being kind of normal's wingman. The guy in or the girl in the passenger seat watching what normal is doing and saying, you have got to be out of your mind. I mean, one of the things that I love most is like I have a human behaviors teacher in these books, and she's always trying to teach them how to behave. So, how to recognize a human being by their face rather than their smell, and how to the differences between the 8 forms of falsehood that humans have, and how some, like flirtation, require one response, but falsehood requires another. So, it's like being able to look at humans from another's eyes. So I love that. I'm not so far, I find myself being a high fantasy person, because then that's too far removed. You don't get to look at who we are now.
Right. So you're more urban fantasy then, is that what
I would say probably more urban fantasy.
Yeah, and I think ultimately what we all love about the fantasy and paranormal world, and I love, because you're right, it is beside normal, but it's the world building, no matter what it is. I mean, a really great author can make you believe in a world that is so fantastic if they do it right. And that's why I don't read a lot of just reality fiction, because I'm like, well, that's just the world around us. I want to see what someone has come up with on their own. And I love that you created your own language. I think that's really
that is
exceptional.
so cool.
And
It's actually not. Okay, I'm gonna say, because somebody's gonna say, oh, she didn't create her own language. No, I used Old English, because when I was in school and I first heard Old English, I heard Cadman's hymn, Nue Shulan Harean, and I thought, and the way that my teacher spoke it was howling. And I think this is true. It had a definite beat and a kind of howl to it. And I thought to myself then, decades ago, if wolves had a language, this was what it would be. And then that allowed me, so I used that, and also that mythology uses a lot of wolves, which I took those stories, like the stories of Garm and of Fenrir, and turn them around so that it was seeing it from the wolves' perspective, not from the gods' perspective, because the gods are terrible. The Norse
they are.
They really are.
They really are.
Yeah,
And
right. You've got 4 gods of war, and they live on a place called the Shelf of the Slain. And, they're supposed to be saved at Ragnarok by a bunch of zombies.
Right.
All of this strikes me as a bad idea.
I love that you used Old English as the wolf language. I was a lit major. I taught high school English, but I got my degrees, my master's and my bachelor's in literature, and I took a Chaucer class, and we had to recite pieces of Canterbury Tales in Old English, and I was so bad at it. And I remember my professor was like, it's okay. Like,
so
you tried.
We used to make Whitney open the back of Cosmo magazines and do the red hot reads in like her sexy teacher voice. So now I think I'm going to make you do Canterbury. Be a bonus episode.
Well, I just like
No,
the
make
idea. Sorry,
Make
go
her
ahead.
do it make her do it in a sexy Chaucer voice.
Oh, what's that sound like, Whit? I can't
I
wait.
cannot. I cannot. Just the idea of having a professor that is able to speak in Old English in a way that is beautiful, right, and inspiring is just so awesome to me, because that was not my that was not my ability, right? So
But
I think that's so
in your
cool.
defense, you're good at everything else.
Well,
So
that's
you
debatable,
can't be perfect all the time.
but thanks.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm getting ready to ask you a question about fandoms and nerdy things, but I want to ask first, are you a fan of the show Supernatural at all?
I have not watched it. No.
Okay. I know you said you weren't like too into pop culture, but that one's been around for a while. So we're all just super
And
huge
it's a lot
nerds
of
about it.
urban
There's
fantasy.
Supernatural.
Yeah, it's got a lot of urban
think my
fantasy.
kids might be.
Yeah.
So
You should
Uh,
watch it. I
maybe.
think it really I mean, I think anyone can watch it.
Yeah.
And they make fun of not knowing pop culture references in it. Because there's a character who's an angel that comes to Earth and he's never really spent time on Earth. And so they'll make these references and he's like,
Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
right. And so it's
actually
really
great.
funny.
Because I actually the book that I did most recently is called Molly Malloy and the Angel of Death, and in it the Angel of Death wanders around the earth. I mean, he's been here for 200,000 years, but he zips in for the millisecond that he has to steal your soul
Mhm.
from somebody's belly button, and he has no idea of what life is really like, because he's never experienced the time, the causes, the consequences of life. I mean, that's what makes life. It's not, he steals food constantly. That's the
Oh.
thing. So I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy it, just because thinking about the whole paranormal and how you were talking about, you like to see the normal, so to speak, interact, and then the considered not normal pull from that. Like, I think it's kind of up your alley.
Okay, I'll definitely give it a try.
Yeah, it's that same idea as what you were talking about with your wolf people. I know that's not really what they're called, but thinking about somebody that would be so far removed from society and social cues and figuring out how they would interact, like that's how it works with the angels in a lot of ways. On
Exactly.
it's that same kind of idea. I'm gonna ask a silly question, but you just said the Angel of Death takes souls through belly buttons. Is that part of Angel of Death lore, or did you do that?
No, I what I thought was, as he says, he calls it the omphalos, and he says he does that because no matter what else has happened in the disaster of life and in childbirth, that is always there, and that is the beginning and the end, and it's the thing that connects mother to child in this whole long disastrous chain.
Wow,
That's
Right back
beautiful
to the
symbolism.
beginning. That's
I
really
love
cool.
that.
It's
I've
the
always-
alpha and the omega of life.
I've always thought belly buttons were just really freaky.
Well, someone's gonna take your soul out of yours. So
I'm like, have I been right?
That.
Have I been right this whole time? But the way you just said it was much nicer than they're just freaky. Right?
Freaky.
So Maria, I am so sorry. This is why we say we're live, and then my husband can edit this out. We need to stop just a second because my daughter's in the shower and I just heard a really big bang, and I would be a horrible parent if I didn't go up there and see what was
Oh
happening.
gosh, please.
So give me just 1 second if you don't mind, and I'll be right back. I'm so sorry. My
problem.
husband's not
No
here, so
problem.
I need to go check on her. I'll be right back. Happened like a whole minute ago.
We're gonna wait just outside camera.
Who set up these books like this? It looks amazing.
Say it one more time.
It's fake.
Who set up the books like this? It looks
Oh,
amazing.
it's fake.
It's a backdrop.
That was our producer / husband of the podcast, Deb's husband.
We
Or maybe Deb put it up. I'm
Deb
not
might
sure
have put it up.
actually.
But we did one of these, I think one of our first interviews in front of her actual bookshelves, but like we have to move tables and all that stuff, and so it just got a little crazy.
Yeah, I have this sort of
Smarter, not harder.
yeah. Oops.
Okay, sorry, my daughter really likes to break bones. She has broken
Is
both
she
arms.
okay?
Yeah, she's like, she's 15, and I go in there and she's like, "Oh, I just tripped a little." What? You're standing in the shower.
You can't do that.
But yeah,
I
so
know, but they never know at this age. They don't know where their hands are. Their hands are never
know,
2 inches
yeah.
further than they
so
used to.
she
be.
like has broken both her arms. She's had a broken pelvis. She had knee surgery in February. Like she is like a pretty princess. So when I hear a big bang, I get up and go and check.
Wow.
So my apologies for the interruption.
Oh, no problem.
Well, getting back to the fandom question, do you have any fandoms that you're a part of, or any kind of like extra nerdy things that you enjoy?
Okay, can I go back in time?
Of course.
to earlier fandoms. I was a huge Star Trek fan.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
So I had the Enterprise blueprints. I had the Starfleet Academy training manual, which was actually just
love that.
paper stapled together. $9 for it. I had the technical manual, so it was, so I could repair my phaser.
You were all in.
That's
So
awesome.
what
I was all
break
in.
on a phaser that you might need to fix? What was in the manual?
I now don't remember because it actually didn't end
When
up
my
being.
phaser breaks, what are we gonna
I
do?
know.
I don't know. I keep trying to come up with some kind of end of days skill because right now I'm just juicy. And there is no reason to keep me alive.
Right,
when
I hear
the
you.
Days come.
I know. I'm like, I can't run fast. I'm really loud, and so I'm gonna be the first to go. So just have a good meal.
No. I'm the first to go, sweetie. I'm the first to go.
Okay, so we always love to do a nerdy and dirty speed round. And I joke every week because I'm like, authors struggle with quick because they want to be thought out and not answer too quickly. But I really
I'll try.
need you to say the first thing that comes to your head. Okay, so who is your favorite female main character?
Cat Fiza from Amanda Boucher.
Nice. Most binge-worthy book series.
Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Most binge-worthy TV series.
This is something because I recently watched this. Hacks, which
what's that on?
nobody seems to know about, but it's like two really unlikable heroines, and they are fabulous together.
What network is it on?
Really?
It's like Amazon.
I'll
maybe?
look it up.
It's
I'll look it up.
Jean Smart. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew.
So good. It's so
Okay, so tell us a book character you'd get nerdy and dirty with.
good. You guys won't know this. Elric of Melniboné.
I do not
No.
know.
Michael Moorcock. Elric of Melniboné is a sort of albino king, the last king of this dying empire. And except the problem with him is he has a sword that gives him power and allows him to sort of survive, but it also kills everybody around him. So it would be a lot of fun for a very short period of time.
Like, I just need 30 seconds.
To go out with a bang.
Exactly. So what is your favorite slow burn book or series?
Oh my God. Maybe People of the Air. What is it called? Folk of the Air. Air
Yeah,
folk.
Oh, I love
No,
it.
are you thinking
Holly
Air
Grove.
Awakens or Folk of the Air?
Folk of the Air.
Yeah,
Holly
Prince.
Beth.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That
Yeah.
series is amazing. I
That's
love
awesome.
that series. Okay, so if you lived in a fantasy world, what power would you want to have?
That's always easy. I would want to have time, but I would not want to have immortality.
Mm.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
okay.
really interesting.
I like
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so do you prefer smut or plot?
Plot.
Favorite childhood book?
I read a lot of books way too early. So I'm going to say one of my absolute favorites was called The Persian Boy by Mary Renault. And it was about Alexander the Great's lover.
Oh, that's great.
Oh.
I mean, I was doing the same thing. I read
was too.
Amityville Horror at 12. And then, my mom didn't know why I couldn't sleep at night.
I was
So,
Flowers in the Attic was
yeah,
what I
yeah, exactly.
Well, if anybody likes Achilles,
Yeah.
the Persian boy is very much of that same sort of.
Okay, well, I'll have
Yeah.
to look into that. Okay, so what are you currently reading, or what's the last book you finished?
I keep calling it the Confederacy of Witches, but it's not. It's the
Discovery of Witches?
Alex Harrow's Once and Future Witches.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's about witches during the suffragette movement. It's great.
That is on my
Cool.
TBR, and it keeps coming up in conversations with people like I have with bookish friends, and I don't know why I haven't picked it up
You have
yet.
other friends. I'm offended.
Well, I'm offended that you don't think I have any friends.
Okay, so we're gonna do fantasy tropes, yay or nay. All right. So
Okay.
number one, fated mates,
No.
enemies to lovers,
Yes.
forbidden love,
Yes.
class differences like in your species,
Yes.
love triangles.
Absolutely not.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say absolutely. And I was like, yes. Okay. Secret or hidden identity,
I've used it, but it's not my favorite. No.
social commentary in fantasy,
Yes.
true love's kiss,
Mm, that sounds too much like Insta love, and I really don't like Insta love.
I don't like insta love either. Lovers on opposite sides of the war,
Yes.
reluctant companions on a quest.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that we're going to see you at Imaginarium in just a couple of weeks. Actually, I'm so excited. But what other projects do you have going on this year? You just came back from a Polycon, so what are you doing in the rest of 23?
I'm actually moving with the family for 2 months to Los Angeles.
Oh wow.
And so I'm hoping to visit all the great bookstores
Oh yeah.
in
Yeah.
LA and just sort of get to know it. So if anybody out there wants to give me any kind of recommendations, I'm all ears. I'm going to do the Right Women's Book Fest, which is in Maryland, and I'll be doing, I think, a workshop on world building. And yeah, and the rest of it, I don't know.
So is LA for fun or for business?
It's really for fun, and my husband has to be out there, and it doesn't make any difference to me.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So one of the things that we love about being able to do this podcast is being part of the Book Talk and Bookstagram community and how supportive and encouraging it is. So we would love to know what we can do and what our listeners can do to best support you and your work.
I mean, I would just say, people have been so wonderful. I can't say that my books aren't they don't fit into the column quite perfectly, they don't quite match up, but they've found their readers, and the readers are wonderful. So, all I can say is never, ever think you can't say something to an author, because I promise you, on that day, she has surreptitiously read 3 negative reviews and is just desperately sad. So just say something. If you feel like saying something nice, I do it all the time with other writers.
I
I
love
think it's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm a designer, and so anytime, I mean, like the smallest critique, it hangs on me for like 10 to 14 days. Like your stomach drops. And sometimes it can be like the most ridiculous thing on the planet, right? Like someone didn't look at dimensions and it was a different size they thought it was going to be, or something like that. But you feel horrible about yourself. Like, and it creates imposter syndrome really bad.
Absolutely.
In people that are creative. And so you have to really grow this thick skin that almost isn't as fun to have, because it makes me feel like I need a harder exterior than I want to have, but I have to, right? Otherwise you're just going to crumble, unfortunately.
Well, I think one has to put on armor. You have to gird yourself for the proper times.
Right.
I think sort of the most important thing for me, and I think for a lot of people, is learning to preserve your innocence.
I've never had that, unfortunately.
Well, I'm okay, not maybe innocence, but a sense of wonder, an ability to feel wonder
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd agree
is
with that.
huge.
So where can we and our listeners find you online so we can leave you lots of encouraging notes?
Oh, thank you. I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm a little bit on Twitter until somebody sends me a blue sky invite. I got off of Facebook a while ago because I just didn't want to be there. And otherwise my newsletter. But also anybody, basically anybody who emails me, I email them back.
Oh, I love that.
That's sweet.
And your name on Instagram, is it author Maria Vale or just Maria
It's
Vale?
Maria Vale author or Maria Vale writes. I know. Can't remember.
We'll tag it. when we
Yeah,
get
we'll
to
tag
the
it in
episode.
our show notes. So we like to end all of our podcast episodes with sharing what our nerdiest thing of the week was, whether it's book related or not. So we would love to hear what your nerdiest thing of the week or month is as of today.
Okay. I'm not even sure that this counts.
Everything counts.
Okay, everything counts.
Yeah, everything counts.
All right. I watched Constantine. I don't know if you know Constantine.
Like the older
It's
one with
fine.
Keanu Reeves.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Does that count?
Of course
Yeah.
it does. I'm curious as to what you thought of it.
I love it. I love the silence of it. I love
Yeah.
the aesthetics of it. It's got these absolutely gorgeous people. The cast is amazing, but it's always in these sort of broken down like warehouses and destroyed bathrooms. And
Hmm.
and it's very quiet much of the time.
Right.
It's in fact very deliciously creepy.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that. And that movie didn't do as well as I thought it would, because I really liked it as well. And I loved what they did with possession at the beginning of it. And I found
Yes.
the way that they got the demon out to be so interesting. And at the time there wasn't a lot of that.
Right.
And because that was early 2000s, I believe. But
I think so.
I really like Keanu Reeves. I always have.
like
I've
Keanu
loved him
Reeves, too.
since Bill and Ted.
Me
And
too.
he kind of stole my heart back then. And I mean, and now he just does John Wick, which are the most ridiculously fun movies ever. Like he killed someone with a pencil in the first one. And so, I'm like, hey, at least he's still going and people love him. And so that's all that matters, right? He's getting to do what he wants to do.
Well, and if you've watched John Wick, which I have, then you see some of those same motions and sort of responses in Constantine.
Oh, of course.
That
Of
he's
course.
he's
We may have
repeating.
to do a bonus episode on that. There's a lot of lore in it. It would be really fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be.
Let's do it.
it would
Add
be
it to
a-
the list.
To our ongoing
Our
list.
ongoing list. Well, Maria, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us tonight. We're really excited to see you in person and get to chit chat face to
well,
face at
yeah.
Imaginarium.
And the fact that you got up to go get a glass of wine means that if you would like to have dinner with us at Imaginarium, we would be very much up for that.
Thank you so much. I would love to.
That sounds
Great.
great. Well, thank you. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks again.
Thank you
Okay,
so much.
bye.
Have a great
Bye.
night.
Bye.